Here we go. All right. What is up, everybody? All the Fandom family out there. Pretty excited about today's episode. You are probably noticing that it's video for some of you and not just audio. So
What?
Yeah, mind blowing. I'm doing something out of the wheelhouse here, but I had to do it. We have Craig, and I'm really sorry. I'm going to butcher your last name here.
Craig's fine. Craig's fine. Yeah, for sure.
One of the founders of Screwattack and Gameattack, and I'm sure I don't know how many people out there are already like, oh, I know those names, and is now doing his own podcast, which is obviously from doing this myself is pretty crazy. And we talked about it before we started recording, but I feel like everyone watching has got to appreciate that NBA Jam there in the background. Oh, yeah. Classic arcade machine like that. I mean, if you're going to play NBA Jam, I mean, arcade machine, you got to go arcade.
No, I mean, like, you can't replicate it. I mean, I guess you can replicate it because they did replicate it. But it's as somebody who has loved NBA Jam for as long as I have, this is a dream machine. The fact that you can go online and play your friends and stuff, it's so outstanding, and it's so fun, and it's exactly what you want. I mean, I play with my kids now. My kids are into NBA Jam. What's up with that? That's awesome. So I love it.
Yeah, it's weird. You see that next generation now. Whereas like, when we were growing up, like stuff like NBA Jam and arcade machines, it was a lot harder. You had to make plans to do things with your friends. And now it's so much easier to like find this old school stuff. And sometimes you just can't replicate that old school, like that old school mentality with it. I'm getting my son into like older games, like having him pretend play on my Switch of like old school, like Double Axe and like just these really old school arcade machines. So
sure.
I definitely know what you're talking about. So we'll jump into it a little bit. We ended up obviously getting a couple fan questions, which we'll go over. And the first one is actually it's a good friend of mine. I want to start off with his because when I told him, he was actually the one who had me reach out to you in the first place. He was like, "Hey, dude, like I know you know this guy, and he follows all your work, and
nice.
He's been following. He's
tell
been
him
a huge
thank
fan.
you.
Oh yeah, of course. He's gonna get a kick out of it. And he's always had these questions he wanted to ask you because he had old Screwattack handles like from when you first started, and so. I know you're not going to know the name, but G1 Casman 2007. He just wants his question.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. You would be shocked. Like that's the thing about Screwattack. Like Screwattack and Gameattack as a whole is like it's always been so community focused that when somebody's like, "Oh, I was this," most of the time I'm like, "Yeah, I know who you are. Absolutely." I very much know and recognize so many names from back then. For sure.
I love that. That's nice. It kind of shows the appreciation for the fans and the support and everything. So
for sure.
I feel like everyone will get a kick out of that. His question is kind of related to both identities in general. And so he want to know, you've created two brands with Screwattack and Gameattack. So you can kind of take them both individually or together. What inspired you to step away from them? And how did you overcome that fear of leaving like a stability of the brand to start something new?
Yeah, good questions. So with Screwattack, it was simply this. Screwattack had reached a point to where it was going to grow regardless. And the marquee show at the time and now is Death Battle. It was kind of growing the audience hand over fist. We had this show that had a virality to it. And after Screwattack was acquired by Fullscreen, I shifted the programming a little bit. I was challenged. They said, "Listen, we either want you to grow your website or grow YouTube." And I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I was like, "Well, the YouTube is the way to go here, right?" Because people like getting people off YouTube is incredibly hard,
right?
Even then. So I shifted all of our programming. I remember it was a big move. We shifted all of our programming. We were doing like clips of the weeks and hard news and stuff like that at the time, and a lot of personality driven stuff. And the goal was like, well, let's grow the YouTube channel. So the stuff that works on YouTube, or at least did then, and still does today, it's just human nature, is I call it like definitive programming. Everything was this person's going to win. This is the best thing. Top 10 this. And it was all built around definitive topics, right? And we grew. Like I think our best month we did like like 36 million views, right? It was awesome. And I'm positive that Screwattack hasn't touched that since, right? It hasn't even come close to it since. So we made that shift and we grew because of it. But in doing that, we lost a connection with our audience. They didn't really know who we were. Or at least the new audience that was coming in didn't know who Craig was. They didn't know who Sean was. They didn't know who Chad was. They knew Wiz and Boomstick from Death Battle, and that's really all they cared about. And then they would kind of trickle down to the other stuff. So for me, leaving Screwattack was a hard decision, but it was a easy decision at the same time. And that I wanted to have an audience that when we spoke, they listened, and when they spoke, we listened to them. Right? We heard them. So it was something that was really important. It was just how I make things work. So I went to at the time we were with Rooster Teeth. I went to Jeff and Lewis over at Rooster Teeth and was like, look, I want to start this new brand. This is why. I listed the exact same reasons there. The whole idea of listening to them and them listening to us. And that's where Gameattack happened. It wasn't going to be called Gameattack. We had like a dozen names, and Gameattack was not even on the list. And and we ended up being called Gameattack because Jeff Ramsey liked the other name that we had chosen, which I don't even remember the other name right now. But Jeff Ramsey liked the other name, so he said he didn't want us to use it because he wanted to use it for something for him. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a jerk move, but all right.
Thanks, I guess.
Yeah, right. So so we did that and launched Gameattack. And originally it was a VOD channel. Then we switched to live with the idea of having this one-to-one interaction. And then fast forward 3 years with Gameattack. There was a few things, right? Number one, it was just kind of time for me. It was just kind of time. And I woke up one day and I was like, I'm ready to move on. But there was, I felt like I had grown it to a point to where I'd done pretty much everything I could do with GA. I had secured an exclusive contract with Twitch. I had locked in sponsorship deals with G Fuel, and I felt like I had kind of grown. I'd done as best as I could do with Gameattack, and for me mentally, I went into Gameattack being like, I'm going to go hard for 2 years and give this my absolute best. And so I went 3 years, and for me, it was about time. So that's kind of like the high level idea of why I left. I kind of felt like I kind of maxed it out, given where we're at right there. So, I mean, Gameattack obviously still continues and is going strong, and I hope the boys have all the success in the world. But now it's on to new fun stuff.
Yeah, and podcasting is a new and an exciting adventure. I can definitely attest to that. And getting into last kind of fan question I'll ask you, and then we'll jump into more specific questions. Is with both Screwattack and Gameattack, and you mentioned it a little bit. Did you have specific visions when you started that evolved over time? And if so, like, what did you kind of do to kind of prepare yourself for that, especially with like the digital kind of age constantly evolving? And if you were to kind of restart, this is a question from Lucas Edgen, who's actually a reporter with the Los Angeles Times.
Nice.
And he just wants to know if you could go back and tell your younger self anything that you know today about starting off, what would you tell?
Well, Lucas, I'm glad you asked, and I look forward to a really sweet write-up in the Los Angeles Times about Screwattack soon. No, it's I'll say this, things have changed a lot, right, over the last 14, 15 years since I launched Screwattack. But the thing that remains the same is how you treat people. And I think that's, if you treat people good, people will treat you good. And I think that's one of the most important things. It just comes down to like being a good person. And it's from a technology standpoint, I mean, obviously the idea of like websites are like obsolete now, right? Like, I mean, it's crazy to say, but like you go to YouTube and you go to Twitter and Facebook and social media to get your information, your data, your entertainment. And so the idea of like starting a screwattack.com today, it's like, like this website that's there for information. It's like, what, how, no, or entertainment. Like there's, you have Netflix for that. You have YouTube for that. So, obviously I don't think a website like Screwattack could work, from an entertainment, from that perspective. But I think a community focused sites, platforms could work, platforms for community outreach, things like that. So, reaching back and talking to me, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, I would say, I would tell myself, look, you don't really know what you're doing, and that's okay. It's okay to not know what you're doing. You'll figure it out as you go. And to say, the one thing about business that I've learned is that people can say they know business, but nobody truly knows business, right? Everyone out there is guessing. Everybody out there is trying their best. Everybody out there is trying to get their live stream seen, their YouTube seen, their whatever. They're all trying to do this, and they're all trying to make a living doing it. And you have to take risks. You have to take risks to stand out. You have to take risks to go for it. And you may not know if those risks are good, but if you trust your gut and you go for it, that's all you can ask, and that's more like a personal life philosophy for me, and one that's developed over the last, 14, 15 years for sure.
I like that. It's, don't be afraid to take the leap and know that you're gonna stumble periodically across it, but you just kind of sometimes take that jump anyway.
Right. So before Screwattack and even before like the slam ball days, right? I worked for a company that essentially worked for Coca-Cola, right? And I did like promotions for them, and I was like an MC, like on the mic master ceremonies, right? Not like a rap MC, but like a promotional guy, right? And I was down in South Padre Island for spring break 2002, and excuse me. And while I was down there, my boss at the time, Dan was on the stage, and we're on this beach, right, in front of this is for spring break. And there's 5,000 kids on the beach, right? 5,000 college students sitting there staring at this stage that is huge. It looks like a rock concert, right? And you go up there and you're their entertainment, right? And I'll never forget this. Dan told me the story. He goes, look, last year I was here. He goes, I screwed up on stage, and you can either do one or two things when you have all these eyeballs on you. You can either pass it off and act like it didn't happen, and everybody knows it's happened, right? Or you can own up to it and everybody laughs about it, right? And that always stuck with me, right? The idea like you're gonna screw up and it's okay, and you can have a ton of people looking at you, literally a ton of people, but it's okay to mess up. Everybody messes up, and the idea that sometimes mess ups are bigger than others, right? And that's okay. But just try to make your mess up as little as possible. So,
yeah, no, I like that. I've definitely had instances where I've been doing recordings or different various things, and midway through you realize that you've just I'll realize midway through that I've not asked any of the questions that I've had prepared, and things have gone off like completely off the rails and stuff. And I've done the failed mean group of friends way long ago, the failed let's make funny YouTube videos and see if it goes anywhere. And there was like a day we tried doing like this giant Mario thing and probably spent like 8-10 hours doing it, and then got done and realized that nothing that we recorded made sense together. So there was nothing to piece together. So it was just, all right, well, there goes the last day and a half. Like there's nothing we can use from this. There's absolutely nothing.
But you learn from it.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes, look, I would rather spend 8 to 10 hours hanging out with my friends playing video games and then learn from that than 8 to 10 hours shoveling dirt. And you know what I mean? Like there are worse ways to spend 8 to 10 hours. And while there was a little bit of heartbreak there, you learn from it, and I'm sure you learn from the mistakes later on, and that's no big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all pretty fun. And before we dive into some stuff, because I do want to reference your Street Fighter shirt, because there's a couple of comments I want to make in there. But so Screwattack, what I want to dive into really quick is a lot of people I mean, to this day, we'll still consider Screwattack as like the start of like a different era, that really first major website back, like when you would reference, like when websites were kind of the go-to place to go and chat with people and build a community. And Screwattack really became like that epsilon of like, where a lot of people wanted to go and see a lot of the videos and work that you were doing. So when you were starting off and you saw, like when you started it off, was it just something that you saw as like, if we get 10 people on the website a month, I'm happy with it? Or did you like go into it knowing that this had the potential for that kind of success? And once you saw that level of success, did that like change your approach to, how you did the website or anything? Or did you just kind of like to ride the wave?
Yeah. So I think while it was happening, none of us kind of knew the impact that Screwattack was having. We didn't understand the scale of our audience. We didn't understand the scope of what we were doing. And I think that's kind of the craziest part, in retrospect, you go like, wow, that's pretty awesome. And it was very cool. Thank you very much for the kind words, by the way. Yeah. So I would say this, everything that we did from a website perspective, every decision that I made was with the intention of making Screwattack a better place for the people who came and watched our content, watched our videos, the G1s, right? That was every decision we made. It was not like, well, we have X number of users on the site now, let's make a decision to capitalize. No, it was like, okay, how can we maximize it for this one person? And that one person will enjoy it and they'll pass it on and pay, and tell a friend. The website, the funny thing about Screwattack.com as a website is that it never made a cent for us. Like the website cost money for us. We lost money every single month with the website, from hosting and everything associated with it. We never made any money from ads on the website. It was a placeholder. It was a place for people to go, and a place to be. We didn't, Screwattack didn't have an internal sales team. We didn't have somebody going out and selling custom campaigns, for Madden or whatever it may be. And that's how you make your money on websites. And, through these custom integrations, you see IGN do these all the time. And that's why they're so profitable. They have such a great sales team and they have these relationships. I mean, we're just this website out of Dallas, Texas. We're not in Silicon Valley. We're not in LA. We're not in San Francisco. We don't have these relationships with these giant, advertising agencies and companies that represent all these other large companies. So for us, the website was just this thing that we wanted to have the best experience possible. So we always tried to have fun with it. I remember one feature we added to the website was rating things was really big, right? I think on game trailers in particular, you could rate videos on a scale of 1 to 10. And it's just like YouTube, like there was either a 10 or a 1. There was nobody rates it a 7, right? Like a video, it was just like, this is great or it sucks. So a lot of times, you get splits. But one thing I thought was really fun that we did was once a day, you could rate one video on the site an 11, and and that was a one time a day thing. And I thought, well, that was always like really, really funny that we did that. And that was, we did it because it was fun, right? Like just the idea of like, you can rate one video a day. Everything is 1 through 10, except for one video that you really, really like. And that could be, so it was almost like a badge of honor if a community member got an 11 on their video or something like that. And I thought that was like a really fun feature that was forgotten about. So,
yeah. And you feel like it's kind of like nothing like that really exists now. Everything is rate something, F through A or 1 through 10. And, that's really it. I mean, maybe, I guess favoriting now would be the thing. If you really like something, you can give it like a gold star or something. But no, I like that. It's kind of the show. Like you said, it's making things different for not only the fans and the people that are going to the website, but something to just make it a little different, add some more creativity to it. And, when you were, jumping through, Screwattack, was there any, I know it's a generic question to go like, what were your favorite memories? But were there any like key moments in the Screwattack era that, you thought to yourself that this is something special, or, I never in a million years I thought this have happened, like something maybe just off the cuff that happened that one day you were just like, wow, this wouldn't have happened if this website didn't grow. So maybe not
Right.
like your favorite memories, just those things internally that you saw as like, this is something special.
Yeah, so I would say there's so many fun moments. But the moments that really stick out to me when you say like this is something special were there were times that where I just felt electricity, right, from something amazing happening, and a lot of that was built around SGC and the live event we did. So SGC was Screwattack Gaming Convention. We did 5 of them, 5 like official SGCs, and it was always SGC was always built around just having an awesome time, getting together with your friends and going crazy. And it was a really strong community event that people who went there were like, that's the one thing I consistently heard over and over again was like, this is my favorite event. I love coming here. And then from our feedback that we got from people was like, keep it the same. Don't change anything, whatever. I don't want to add anything. And it was really great. But I always wanted people to leave SGC on the highest of highs, right? The idea that I want people to be having such a great time and then it just end. And it's like, that's it, to where they're like, what? I want to come back,
Right, yeah.
And that was kind of the idea. So during SGC, we had a tournament that we ran called the Iron Man of Gaming. And the Iron Man of Gaming was essentially a concept that was built around finding the best overall gamer, playing games from all consoles, all genres, and all eras. To where if you were good at, I always say, if you're good at Halo, you have to be good at Super Mario Brothers too, right? To where you're playing all these different games on all these different consoles. And the finals were always the last thing at SGC. They were always the last thing. And the reason why they're the last thing is because I would always try to secure a brand new game for the finals. And we did. I think I secured, I don't know, like maybe five or 6 games over various Iron Man of Gamings and SGCs to premiere for the first time in the world at these events.
Oh, wow.
And there's 2 in particular that really stick out. The first one was the premiere of Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which had never been played publicly before. Wow. Up until that point. And
that's pretty cool.
It was really, really cool. And obviously people have gone on to like trash Sonic 4 and all this stuff. But at the time, people were like extremely hyped for this. This was 2009, maybe 2008. And I remember standing on stage and we had the lights go out and we have this countdown go off. And then you just hear the Sonic shing, like spin dash sound. And it just like hit. And as soon as the audience heard that sound, it was just this unified, what? Holy crap. And at the time, like these Vuvuzela horns from the World Cup are going off. And like, it was just this crazy electric moment that I remember standing on stage and my hair, like right now, even as I talk about it, like my hair is popping up on my arm, just thinking about it. It was crazy electric. So you can find footage of that on YouTube, which was great. And the second one was Killer Instinct. We were the first place publicly ever that it was played in public. And the crazy thing about it was SGC was like, I think it was like a week or 10 days after E3, after Killer Instinct was first announced. And it was, and the way it happened, we actually had DuckTales Remastered was going to be our mystery game, and it was a mystery game. So we had 2 mystery games that year. So I had secured DuckTales Remastered, but I was like, man, I can't stop with KI. Like I remember sitting at E3 and watching the press conference, and as soon as Killer Instinct was announced, I remember being like, holy crap, that's amazing. I wanted it at SGC. I wanted it at Iron Man. And literally the rest of the time at E3 I spent, that was like before the event even started. This is like during the press conference phase. I was tracking down who I needed to talk to about this and pitching the idea of this. And I worked with this guy, his name's Filthy Rich. Rich Rich like showed belief in what I showed him that we'd done it before in the past, and this, all these different things, and we premiered Killer Instinct like a week after it was announced as a playable game at the Iron Man of Gaming, and it was insane. Like it was so crazy that people didn't believe it when it was announced. They didn't understand what was announced because either they didn't know that a new Killer Instinct was coming, or they had no idea that like in a week that it could happen. And that was cool. That was really, really cool. And that was something that I'm really proud of. I'm proud of being able to pull that off. I'm proud that Microsoft like believed in it enough to where they were like, yeah, okay, let's do this. It was really neat.
Yeah, because that's a big risk, because after E3, a lot of stuff is, I mean, I guess now it's more scrutinized than before because everyone can look up everything and find out more information. But especially back then, you show something at E3, you're trying to build all this hype. So to then show real gameplay, and actual people playing it, so live, viewer experience
in a tournament setting.
Yeah, in a tournament setting, that's a big risk because like if everyone hated it and had a terrible time playing it, I mean, it's not going to be bad for you because you're like, hey, we're putting on the event, but that could like tank the game. So yeah, like you said, that's not only impressive that you were able to get that done, but that Microsoft was like, yeah, okay, like we're confident enough in the game to showcase that, which I don't know about you, and I'm curious to hear your opinion on this. This is more of just an internal thought based on what you just said. Do you think that's something that's missing a little bit from today, that companies aren't as willing to take those kind of risks where, you see a lot of games getting delayed, like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Cyberpunk. A lot of these games will either go on massive delays or they come out with like a lot of issues, Fallout 76, No Man's Sky. And there's all this like kind of, trying to get the gaming community back behind it again. So it's just something that when you mentioned it, I thought I was at in the last couple of years, 5-10 years or so, there hasn't really been a lot of these from, I guess teased to actual gameplay footage or showing actual people playing it. There seems to be just here's alpha footage or here's, beta footage. Here's a computer playing the game. Do you think companies aren't as willing to take that risk today with, I guess, the new age we're in?
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Oh, early. Yeah, I think, I don't blame companies for that. I really don't. The thing is, a lot of these companies have a lot of money and a lot of investments and a lot of employees that they have to worry about, right? So the idea of taking risks on a product is pretty staggering. I mean, if you have 1,000 people like working a game, right, and that game goes belly up, guess what? That's 1,000 people who don't have a job. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And I don't think people really think about those things when like criticizing, and they like, oh, Madden's the same game every year. Like, okay, that's fine.
What else would it be?
Yeah. And it's like, has football changed that much, So, it's one of those things where I don't think people really think about those things when they're critical of situations, and myself included, 10, 15 years ago, I would not have thought the same way as I do now. Right. But I know even from a small perspective, with Screwattack having, whatever it was, 20, 25 people, whether it's working with us or freelance or whatever it was at the time, like that was one of the main reasons why Screwattack was sold, right? Like was because we didn't have insurance. I couldn't afford insurance for everybody. I wanted to make sure people were making enough money to live. And that was one of the main reasons why we sold, was because I wanted to take care of the people who were working hard for Screwattack and for me. And that was, I can only imagine investing, I don't know, $50 million into a game's development, right? And being like, well, let's take some risks with it. We're gonna follow what the audience says, and if they, and even then it may not work, right? You look at a game,
right?
There's a new battle royale that was just, I think it's called Hyperscape, that was just released, right? And Hyperscape's this game. It's like super polished. It looks cool. It's got this vertical gameplay that's super fast paced. It's kind of like this old Quake style battle royale where there's all sorts of movement and it looks really, really cool. And then nobody's playing it. But then there's a game like Fall Guys, which looks like it was developed, by 3 guys and a rooster, right? That is taken over Twitch, and it's super fun to play, and it's easy, and it's like 8 to 10 mini games, like total. And it's just like, it's essentially a Mario Party clone minus the board game stuff. And it's insanely fun. And that's like, who knows? That's the thing. Who knows?
So it's a weird age. You never know what's going to take off. I mean, you can look at, like PUBG was kind of the first mainstream battle royal game that was really crazy popular. And then, other games have since like come on, and it's almost like it died out in a way. And you hear people talking about how like other games have just like taken over that audience because like a new game comes out and like everyone goes to it. And it's just, there's so many games now and mobile gaming and just things that you can play on the go. And
right.
It's crazy. And you mentioned earlier, what I want to jump to is because you mentioned earlier, what you've always tried to focus on is the community and the people that support it. So to help doing that, not only quickly, I want to talk about the podcast a little bit, but help people, I guess, learn who Craig is. What are you kind of about? What are some of your favorite games? Like some of the stuff that you kind of like your all time. Like what are you playing now? We've had a lot of the showcases lately. There was no E3, but Microsoft and Sony have each done their own specific showcase. So like, what are you looking forward to? What's, who's Craig? And when it comes to gaming and just in general. And then, what made you start a podcast? What was really the driving force behind that? So kind of like a 2-part question.
Sure. So Craig as a video game is anything that you can play with your friends on a couch. That was one thing that I loved about Gameattack was it was so couch co-op centric and friend experience. So for me, it's games like this, games like NBA Jam, games that you can play with people, against people, to whether it be a Street Fighter or whatever. I love games like that. A game like Fall Guys. Even though Fall Guys you don't play with people, it's always more fun with other people around, right? Right. Those are the type of games that I love. Full transparency, I haven't watched any of the showcases. I haven't watched. I honestly, I don't really care. I really don't care. Yeah. For me, games have become more of a hobby than anything else. Probably the last couple of years. I'm not like, I don't wake up thinking about like what the next game coming out is. I really enjoy games like a battle royale. I enjoy Apex, even PUBG. I started playing PUBG again, which is weird. But because I haven't been hacked, which is good because I don't think there's enough people. There's not enough people playing it right now to warrant hackers, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, but for me, those are the type of games that I really enjoy playing. Games where you're either playing with somebody and laughing or competing against people and taking it seriously, right? Which I'm not a huge single player guy, never have been. From a podcast perspective, why did I start the podcast? I realized that I just had all these different relationships with a lot of really great folks, and I wanted to talk to them, not from a like hey, let's make videos together. It's just let's just talk as people. And so far, I'm really proud of the episodes that have been put together. They've really grown, and even just like 7-8 episodes that have done 8 episodes right now. There's been 7 full, and then there's a bonus one with Gus from Rooster Teeth. But I'm really proud of them. I really like them. It's a podcast that is super niche, but at the same time, it's not that niche in that you're listening to people who have been making a career out of content for years, and there's a common theme across all the podcasts, and that is hard work will get you places, right? Part of it's hard work, part of it's luck. Part of it is, you hear the trials and tribulations, behind the scenes stories of it. And I think the latest episode with Gerard the Completionist, like it's a 2-hour roller coaster, and that the conversation that we have is all over the place. I mean, and it's not in a bad way. I mean, it is truly, you're on the dips of the roller coaster. You're at the top of the mountain. You're going down. You're doing loops, and I'm really happy with how that podcast turned out. And for me, I think that says a lot about the people that I have on the podcast, that they're willing to open up and talk about those things that they may not necessarily wanted to talk about previously, or maybe people haven't asked them questions about. People have always asked about their career and such, but I want to talk about them as people, and that to me is pretty cool.
Yeah,
as my dog barks, I'm sure you can hear my dog.
As your
Bowser.
dog bark. Bowser. Oh, okay. I'm very, very much respect for the name.
That's right.
Bowser is probably the only character I'm even very cheaply remotely good at, and in Smash Brothers, because with the new iteration, it's very easy just to grab them and what's called the Bowser suicide, where you just grab them and then you just plummet off the edge.
Right.
I think there's only 2 characters that can, Sonic and somebody else are the only 2 characters where if you time the jumps perfectly, you can survive from it. You can get from the bottom and get back up and grab onto the edge. But for most characters and most people, if you're just a casual gamer,
sure,
you don't know like the subtle nuances of getting back up.
No.
And so for you as a podcaster, what to you has been like the greatest, like when you're seeing the future, right now, is it like you said, are you just kind of focused on talking with people and hearing their stories, or do you have like a specific vision that you'd like to see it grow into?
Yeah. So from a podcast perspective, there's actually a couple things. I would love to do it daily, but I would love to turn it into more of a call-in show, to where I have I have somebody on a day-to-day basis with me, and if there's a point to where we can turn it over to the audience and they can ask questions to these people, that's what I would love to do. And that, I think that's a little bit away, but I would love to kind of treat it as a daily talk show. And that to me would be really, really fun. So I think that's a really strong Patreon push away for sure.
Yeah.
Because for that to happen, I would need to hire somebody. I definitely need some new equipment. I want a physical phone line for that. I don't want to do it over Discord or anything, because I want to be able to queue people up and have somebody screen the calls. So it's not like, let's go to Johnny and he's like, hey, fuck you, whatever. So, yeah, I would definitely love to do it that way for sure. So that's like the long-term goal. I'm not like super pushing for it right now, because I have some other projects that I'm working on as well that are going to take up a lot of my time coming up. So the podcast for me is definitely a passion project. But right. The other project that I'm working on is definitely kind of the next step in my career.
Okay. And obviously I don't want you to spoil anything you can't talk about just yet. But when you're, what were some of like the struggles? You talk about sometimes you just want to get to know the person. So I always try to do that a little bit, with everything. So, regardless of what it is, and this can be non-Screwattack or Gameattack, but when you're going through life and you're doing something as big as these things are, where did you see like kind of like struggles in life, like really affecting you when it came to this, because you're starting huge, enterprises, Screwattack grew huge, Gameattack was huge. Your podcast is growing, what's just some of those struggles that you kind of deal with when you're also trying to be a content creator at the same time?
Yeah. I think probably the biggest thing is dealing with an audience, just from a personal perspective. There are people who to this day think I'm just a giant jerk, right? And they don't know me, right? They legitimately have no idea who I am. They just, they think I'm a jerk because of something that happened in 2008, right? And I'm a bad person, and so dealing with, anytime you create content online, you're going to deal with people who oftentimes it's children, it's kids who are just, they don't know how to interact with people. They don't know how to converse. They don't know how to provide criticism. And, it's just more just like, you're a bad person, you're a piece of shit, whatever. And so there's a lot of that, right? I'll say there was a lot of that. Not a whole lot now. But, you still get it occasionally. And that's always fun because it's like, nobody goes into your job or their job or any job, like, let's say you go and you go into like Subway, right? And the sandwich isn't like, it's not your favorite sandwich. How often do you get up and be like, hey, your sandwich making skills suck, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's just something you don't do that I feel like people who create content online are subject to probably more than most people in their day-to-day lives. Obviously you receive criticism from your boss and such, but it's like it's like if some guy was overwatching like some sales guy and be like, what were you thinking only selling 500 when you could have sold 1,000? It's like,
right.
You're not in the situation. So I would say, and it's going to sound really silly, but I think that's one of the things that is really important for people to remember when dealing with, talking about and talking to people who make content online. Outside of that, from like a business perspective, there's always the unknown. There's always the idea that, well, what if something fails, right? And my thought process has always been like, well, if this fails, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And I think that goes to the, that's what I'm going through now, right? Like with the podcast and with this thing I have coming up. If it fails, get back up, get back up and try something else. And, Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, has a really great saying. He says, in business, you only really need to be right once. And, you can be wrong a million times, but if you're right once, that's good. And, so, you just keep on grinding, keep on going. So yeah. I'd say those are probably the two biggest things.
Okay. And I think definitely you're definitely still grinding, working on numerous things, all at the same time. And for you, how do you, again, this is kind of just a get to know you question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you yourself, like, you're juggling a lot of different things. What for you is the best way to kind of like, I guess not really prioritize, but like, how do you make sure you keep yourself abreast of like everything going on and organized and not drop the ball somewhere? Because I feel like that's things that can happen a lot when you're not only creating content, but you're going through different things as you're trying to juggle everything. And if you drop the ball somewhere, usually you can see it, and then sometimes it's hard to come back from that.
Notepads, writing everything down. Like that's how you'd be surprised how much you can get done if you just spend 10 minutes thinking about the things that you need to get done, writing them all on a list, and then just going down the list. Like, you'll be shocked at how much you can get done. And if you go in organized, you will knock it out so fast. And that for me is something that whenever I feel scatterbrained, that's something I always do is take a few minutes and just kind of spend 10, 15 minutes, however long I need to do to get all my thoughts down, and kind of go from there. And I know that's like oversimplifying it, but sometimes simplifying things is the easiest way to do it. But for me right now, at this point in my life, like the businesses are they're obviously important, but more important than anything else at this point in my life are my two kids and my wife. And everything else that I'm doing right now is second to them, and watching my kids grow up and being there for them at school and coaching their soccer teams and things like that. Right. So, I can put a list of everything down of the things that I need to get done. But the top of that list will always be, what I have out there, kids and wife. So, if you want to know like me, that's me for sure.
Yeah. And that's important. I have a 3-year-old son. He's not here right now, or he would have already run up to me multiple times, as he's done frequently. If people who are listening and you've listened to past episodes, I think he appears at least once every other one other episode, and I usually leave it in because it's
Yeah,
it's part of my life, and
yeah, exactly. Like why hide that? Why hide a child's exaggerate like excitement to see their dad? Like that's awesome, like, and anybody who doesn't get it, and it's just one of those things where like kids are the best. Being a dad's the best. It's awesome.
Yeah. And there was, I've talked about my struggles before. There was a learning curve, becoming like a father for the first time, and mistakes and stuff that I, can see now and being like, man, you wish you could have changed sooner. Like you always have those, like, man, I wish I would have done this sooner, but I know now what I need to do to be around in his life, in any capacity. And like when I do Dungeons and Dragons a couple times with like friends over like Discord and Roll20 and stuff, and he always comes in for at least like half an hour, and he just grabs the microphone and says stuff, and he rolls all my dice for me, and he gets a huge kick out of it. And it's small moments like that I've learned is, like you mentioned, it's fun doing the podcasting, and it's fun playing games and all that stuff. But when you can start to share those experiences with them, and like him pretending, like if I play Smash and he grabs, like I have like an extra dead Switch Joy-Con, so it doesn't connect, but he thinks it does, and so he'll grab it, and he'll he knows enough, so he'll pick, he knows like Yoshi and the Pokemon and stuff, so he'll pick them. And then like the cute moments of he doesn't quite understand, obviously only being 3, that games don't, like, you can't change midway through a game. So he's turned off my Switch a couple of times when he's been like, no, I don't want to play Yoshi anymore, I want to play Pikachu. So then he'll try to like go to the menu and cancel out. But
yeah, it's awesome. Like last night we were we have a couple other arcade 1-ups. We have a Street Fighter and a Pac-Man one, and like last night for 30 minutes it was between my wife, my kids, and me, we were sitting around just playing Pac-Man and Street Fighter together, right? And like that's awesome. That's awesome stuff. Like these relatively harmless games that you can sit down and just have a fun time. And I teaching my daughter how to do a spinning bird kick with Chun-Li yesterday. Like those are things that like you hold on to.
Yeah, I'm more preferential to just the Honda nonstop spam his hand, the hand attack over again.
Well, Chun-Li also has the kick, so
that's true. That's true. There's a couple in Street Fighter that I wouldn't call it cheap, but I mean I guess you kind of could. Like Honda, Blanca, and Chun-Li have those moves where you can really, if you know how to play the characters and how to play against the person you're playing against, you can pretty much just spam one thing and be good.
That's your noobness talking though, because if you play you play against anybody who has any sort of skill,
that's
they will decimate you. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. When you know who you're playing against, like I have, especially for 2, it's probably still one of my all-time favorite fighting games, just because of just the characters and the simplicity and just how much fun you could have. And I know I had certain friends where if I played Honda and did that attack, they had no idea like that you could do like the slide and get it, or you could do like you could do Bison's like spin attack and it would cut through it. And like they didn't know any of that stuff. And so you're like, well, it's my friend, so I'm gonna be kind of a jerk and just spam it against them. You mentioned like the couch games and stuff like that. What are some of your like kind of just like favorite couch games, and how it can be however old, but like what are some of your favorite just sit down and just play it out, other than NBA Jam, which I know we've talked about.
Right. I think something games that I really love to play that I look forward to showing my kids sooner than later is just the Wii as a whole. I really loved I loved Wii Sports. Wii Sports is such a fun, easy game. It's like stupid tech demo. I mean, it's so great. Wii Sports is super fun from a couch perspective. You're not truly on a couch. It's more about, like I said, playing with friends and family. From a couch perspective, like I said, anything that has multiplayer aspect to it. I think of like a Turtles in Time, any sort of beat 'em up like that. I'm a big fan of that, games like that. So yeah, I think those are like the first couple that really pop in my head. and it's really weird. I never thought like Wii Sports would be like at the top of my list for anything, but but yeah,
pretty fun though.
As you asked the question, that was the first thing that popped to my mind, and I figured I'd just kind of roll with it. So
yeah, I mean, Wii Sports was definitely pretty fun and definitely like a family game. Like, it's weird, like the Wii might be, I guess, dead in a sense where
it's dead.
They're not really supporting it or anything like that. But to your point, like for a family game or something that like with your kids that you could like just boot up a Wii Sports game and like play the baseball or in the bowling, and I'm blanking on what the rest of them were, but I think that, like, to your point, I think that's what's important is you try to find those games that are important to play with family, and because like you said, that's at the end of the day, that's going to be the most important thing. And I know we're getting, whether you're watching this on, the live, the video, or if you're listening to this as the podcast, I know we're getting closer to wrapping up here. So really just, in general, as like a final thing, where not a final thing, but like to make sure people can find the places where you are doing your work. So not only the podcast, but like this new project, without obviously giving away too many details, like where can people pay attention to the stuff that you're doing and kind of keep up with everything?
Yeah, sure. YouTube.com/Craig Skits is where you find the podcast. I'm also doing I'm doing reactions to classic Screwattack videos as well on that now. And I'm going to be adding another show or two in the next couple months that I have. So the podcast will be the base of it. And then I'll be adding a couple other edited shows there as well. I also live stream every day at 1 p.m. Central Time on twitch.tv/Craig Skits, which if you're just looking for a place to hang out, it's super casual. We just have a good time. And we got a really great tight-knit community. And if you really, 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 really enjoy my stuff and you want to support it even further and get us closer to having that call-in show, you can support over on patreon.com/Craig Skits. It is every viewer's a miracle, as they say. If you decide to come on over, I greatly appreciate it. Say hi.
Yeah, and I'll definitely make sure I try to tune into that Twitch a little bit later. And like you said, make sure, like, and everyone who, if you're listening to this or you're watching it, I make sure to post all the links to everything, so you guys won't have to worry too hard about where to find everything like that. And really to get closer to wrapping up here, when you kind of look back at what you see in the future for your not like your career and your life and what you've started in the past, what to you is kind of the biggest takeaway from both past, present, and future of Craig? What's kind of the biggest takeaway for you?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I hope when people look at me and my career, I hope they say that I pushed it. I tried to innovate as much as I could, and I feel like with Screwattack, we really did that in a major way. I feel like we did that with Gameattack as well. We with Screwattack in particular, we were live streaming before, on Justin.tv through a VCR, and we were streaming to thousands of people, in a time where live streaming just wasn't a thing. The internet speeds weren't fast enough, and we found a way to make it happen. We produced the first daily video game news show like in history, which was really, really cool. We innovated from how we approached video games with our top 10s and our unabashed way of covering how we did things and just games as a whole, doing top 10 douchebags and calling people out, So with Screwattack, I was really proud of that. With Gameattack, we innovated on how to make a living from a streaming perspective. We added this health bar to our stream. We really found a way to incentivize people to support us and support the streams, and their support allowed us to push the boundaries from a live streaming perspective as far as creating original content that was legitimately TV production quality at a fraction of the price. So with Screwattack and Gameattack, I hope people looked at it as Screwattack in particular as an innovator early on, as a place that people have fond memories of, and hopefully its legacy will continue to live on in some way, shape, or form. As far as the future goes, I want an opportunity to allow. I want to give people an opportunity to allow. I want to give people. I would like to give people an opportunity to grow and become the creators that they want to be, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I like that. And I think one of my last question for you, as we get ready to wrap up, because I know we want to make sure we get you onto not only this Twitch. I don't want to keep all the fans waiting, but if you could pick like the highest high that you've had in your career and the lowest low, what would that be?
Highest high. Highest high was the day that, okay, this is kind of a two-part answer. The highest high was the day that AT&T bought Fullscreen. And the reason is we had been acquired by Fullscreen, and part of that acquisition was it was like one of those stock deals, right? Where they provide stock in their company, and if they get acquired, then things work out. And that's great, right? But the reason why that's important to me, and the thing I'm most proud of with that was I would not have sold to Fullscreen if every single one of the people who worked for me didn't receive stock in Fullscreen. And that was a real sticking point for me. So they were initially not going to offer anybody any stock. And I said, look, we're not going to have a deal unless everybody here gets a piece of the pie. And for me, that was a really, really important thing personally, to make sure that all the guys got taken care of. And when the news came down that happened and AT&T had bought Fullscreen, I knew that all those guys were going to be taken care of. And that the amount of time that they spent working for me for next to nothing, they were going to get a check, and they were going to have a little bit of financial freedom. And that was really, 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 really satisfying for me.
Wow.
So that's, yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. I mean, it's not like a, hey, good job. It's just like that to me was the most proud moment I've been. And I had a few of the guys say thanks. And that was really nice, just like, thanks for fighting for that.
Right.
And the lowest was probably early on. The lowest was early on when after I had to let go of Tom, and Tom and I went our own ways super early on with Screwattack. I think the lowest was simply it wasn't the blowback from the community. It was when I don't know if you know the story behind this, but the long and short of it is I had this business partner, Tom. He was also, it wasn't even a business partner. He was like one of the co-founders of Screwattack early on, but he was a friend that I had for, I played basketball with all through high school, and we played ball through college and such. And we'd worked together and stuff. So we hung out a lot. We were friends. And it just wasn't a good match from a business perspective, right? He wanted things for work, whatever. Long and short of it was, it just didn't work out. So it was like, okay, we have to go our separate ways. I met up with him at a Subway of all places, and that's the second Subway reference. And we're like, okay, we're gonna do our own things. And we left with the point of saying like, okay, let's make a video explaining to the audience that this is happening. And 3 days go by with him being radio silent, and then there's like this scathing forum post about what a horrible piece of crap person I am, for and all this stuff, and that was like low, right? That was like a low point for me. But the lowest point for me was I found out about that several years later, when during that 3 days he was trying to take the staff that I had. He had called over Ben and Mickey and Jose and was like, hey, I'm starting my own thing. Do you guys want to come over and be on my team instead of Craig's team? And he tried to raid the pantry, if you will. And I didn't find that out till like 5 or 6 years later. And when Ben said something about it, and I was like, what are you talking about? And he kind of told me the whole story. And so that was like that was just, it was weird that you have these lows that are directly correlated to each other, and they're several years later. So yeah, you know, for me, that was kind of the lowest of lows. And, but the highest of highs was making sure that everybody who showed loyalty and they believed in what we were doing, they were rewarded for sure. And I'll take that high over that low any day.
Yeah, and that's definitely commendable. And you know, as we pretty much wrap up here, just final words for people, whether they're watching, whether they're listening, just final words.
Yeah, if you've ever watched any of my stuff, if you've ever watched any Screwattack, if you've ever watched any Gameattack, if you've ever watched a podcast or just tweeted me or whatever, thanks for growing up with me. Thanks for allowing me to do what I do on a day-to-day basis. Thanks for allowing me to take risks and going on those adventures with me. And that's really fulfilling. That's really exciting, and being able to take those risks. And I can't wait to show you guys what I have going on. If you're a content creator, whether you've ever made a video before or live streamed for 1 second, I can't wait to show you what I'm working on next. Yeah, and as soon as I hear about anything, I'll make sure to everyone listening that I post about it, talk about it, make sure, because it obviously sounds pretty cool. So I'll make sure I'm trying to keep up with everything. And you guys know, of course, the podcast can be found pretty much, every major podcasting platform, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all those good ones. I don't know how Alexa has a podcasting platform. I don't understand it, but it does. And, and we're on it. So you can go ahead and listen to their YouTube, at Fandom Effect. If you do want to support the show, no Patreon yet, but you can go to the link if you're watching that scrolling, but it's buymeacoffee.com/fandompodcast. You can go there and support the show, and any donations or anything just goes to equipment and upkeep and things like that. And of course, any questions down the road or anything like that, you guys can always reach out to me. I always try to tell everyone to explore a different fandom, find something new. And so my advice for you guys this week is going to be a little bit aligned with what we're talking about, but to find that passion project, like Craig said, to grab a notepad and just jot down the things that you're a huge fan of, or things that you're really passionate about, or the fandom that you're a huge passion about, and see, could I start a podcast about that? Could I just do a funny video with a friend about that? I mean, whatever it might be, just go ahead and just try to find where that passion might lead you, and just have fun with it. That's gonna be my advice for you guys this week. Your little fandom experience tip for this episode. And the last thing I always leave you guys off with is just remember that when you do find one fandom, 3 more will rise to join it, because it's just kind of how this community works. And yes, that is a ripoff of Hydra, but it just works. Craig, I appreciate you taking the time today to speak with me. And it's been a huge honor for me, just because, like I said, I grew up going to like Screwattack and things like that, and following a lot of your work. So this has been a huge pleasure for me. And I know I have a lot of friends out there that grew up that are around the same age as me, so to speak, that have that same mentality. So just, really appreciate it, and really excited to kind of see your work in the future. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words. And once again, thanks for everybody who's grown up with me and allowed me to grow from a ignorant, stupid 24-year-old kid to a sage wizard in the video game space. So yeah. And with that, guys, I will see you on the very next edition of the Fandom Effect.